think we're insane. It started out small. Like a hand or a leg was in a different position, and its head was looking up instead of down, and then one day it was in a completely different room. It was moving around by itself. Camilla got in touch with a medium. We learned from her that the doll was possessed by a girl named Annabelle Higgins. She had lost her parents and had taken a liking to the doll. All she wanted was to be friends. When we heard this, we felt really sorry for her. I mean, we're nurses and we help people. But then things got worse.
How did you end up with it?
It was a gift from my mom for my birthday. I don't know where she got it.
Thanks to Iran. They had actually digitized all of the so-called pocket litter, i.e. everything that was in the wallets of the captain and the others that were killed from the American side. And we were able to get that off the hard drive. And that told us that this is very clearly their after-action report to their Quds Force handler.
Because they obviously love you, the fans. They film themselves watching your videos.
They're awesome. They started a radio station.
Have you come across Mr. Motormouth?
I think I know which one.
We thought if he was that excited to watch a video of you, how excited... No, he's not here. How excited would it be if we Skyped him, right?
Yeah, amazing.
So I'll just Skype him now. Skyping. There he is. Okay, cool. Hang on. Is that me? Can you see me? Hello?
Hi, Rob. How are you, Dwight?
Very good. Brace yourself, Zachary. Brace yourself, Zachary, because I'm moving the camera. I'm moving the camera. Zachary, here is Lady Gaga. Can you see her?
That bitch! What the heck? That earpiece and that lace and the sheer and the necklace. Honey, you worked, bitch. You ate that.
You know, you're so famous right now. You have no idea. You're all over. You keep telling me.
Where are you? There you are. There you are. There. And is there any little a cappella bit from the new album? Could you do something for him? A little line or something to blow his mind?
I can't help the way I'm feeling. Got some love, please take me to your leader.
It's a safe deal.
Dad, are you okay? Dad?
And the image it liked to project. In 1965, they wrote the first of a series of 10 novels featuring the detective Martin Beck.
Beck, Rosanna, visas nu i TV4-filmen.
Vicar, that he was kind to her. Told her God was on her side.
God wants you to be happy, so rejoice always.
RAF Benson in Oxfordshire. From here, the Thames Valley Air Ambulance provide emergency medical care for 2 million people living in Berkshire, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire. On duty, Dr. Stuart McMorran, paramedic Simon Wettenhall and pilot Marcus Burr.
Oh dear. Schadenfreude laughter. Any other kinds in your head?
Laughter when people, you tell them something and then they laugh like they've got it and then they realise they don't. They go,
and there's also, of course, the Sid James type of sexual laughter. Anyway, now for something a little more local. Name some domestic appliances that really nobody wants.
La, la. In a vicarage, a tie rack.
It's good.
that away from you. No, I'm appealing, sir. There's an act of great pedantry here, but there's not technically an appliance.
Oh, it's up to you.
I'll stay, thanks.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Send me a postcard, won't you?
I'll see you out. Have another whiskey, sir.
Oh, well, please, I think Robert meant for you to help yourself.
Where are you from?
Munich?
Is that anywhere near Munich?
Yes.
Yeah. Pete's trying to pin down the source of his pain. His ribs are very painful, but there's a chance they may be masking the symptoms of more serious damage to his back, what medics call a distracting injury.
And all down here, we're talking from about that line down to about there's painful.
He may also have a spinal injury or an internal bleed.
Because you've hurt your ribs, we can't rule out that you've hurt your back as you've gone down there. You've obviously got significant pain on it, yeah? So, we do need to lay you on your back, so it'll probably just mean giving you a bit more pain relief. Yeah? So we'll see how we go with that. If anything changes pain-wise, tell us straight away.
Helmsley's on the edge of the North York moors.
Ready, steady, and move.
Jerry needs x-rays and scans.
Good lad, Jerry, well done.
And they can only be done in a big city hospital.
Jerry, now you're laid on your back, how does that feel pain-wise?
About that was what I was every time.
Well done, fella.
The owner of the farm's been waiting for Chris to vacate her field.
Feed into Chris?
Ever. And I've seen Peter when he's frozen in sex face.
Peter, would you like more potatoes?
Bill, how are you? Babs, come over here and say hi to Bill Gates.
Hello, Mr. Gates.
Hi, Mrs. Pewterschmidt. Well, this is a quaint little party you guys are throwing.
Hey, Bill, would you help me program my Zune? Oh, wait, I have an iPod like the rest of the world.
Why, you...
Right, Joe, we're here. All right, Beer, Quagmire, start the diversion. Cleveland, find that door. Check. Hey, fellas, knock off all that high society crap and play some of this. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We can dance if we want to. We can leave your plans behind. Cause if friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, no plans of mine. Say, we can go where we want to. Place where they will never find. And we can act like we come from out.
All right, Cleveland, you're all clear to enter the vault. Copy that.
It's a combination lock. Looks like I'm just gonna have to cut through it. Good thing I brought Reese Witherspoon's chin.
Thank you. The USS Hornet has contacted the Ghost Adventures crew because of unexplained things and apparent hauntings going on this vessel. And we're here to find them. Thank you all.
My name is Zach Fagan. I never believed in ghosts until I came face to face with one.
You wanted us, you got us.
So I set out on a quest to capture what I once saw onto video. With no big camera crews following us around, I am joined only by my fellow investigator, Nick Groff, and our equipment tech, Aaron Goodwin. The three of us will travel to some of the most highly active paranormal locations where we will spend an entire night being locked down from dusk until dawn.
You have reached your final destination. Hell.
Extreme.
Stop! Stop running!
These are our ghost adventures. San Francisco, one of the most beautiful cities in America, is also the final resting place for one of the most haunted structures in the world. The Second World War gave birth to great men and great ships, and among these were the USS Hornet, which now lies decommissioned, trapped in 14 feet of mud in the San Francisco Bay.
And yet very few of them take place in the present day. More often than not, they're located in some distant historical period that we've only learned about in books. Disney often uses these historical settings to make characters look exotic and interesting. However, the characters are rarely completely historically accurate. Sometimes Disney takes slight liberties, while other times they get things completely wrong. In this video, we're taking a look at some examples of historically inaccurate Disney characters, and showing you what the characters should have actually looked like. Frozen is a recent addition to the Disney canon, but the movie is set almost 200 years ago in the late 1830s. Although the Kingdom of Arendelle, where Anna and Elsa live, isn't a real place, the filmmakers have said it's somewhere in Scandinavia. They also said they were inspired by 1840s fashion. Yet their design for Elsa's dress isn't exactly spot on. So artist Wakefield took it upon herself to come up with a period-appropriate coronation gown for Elsa. Some might wonder why she didn't choose to redesign Elsa's iconic ice gown. But there's no historical precedent for that, something the artist herself points out. So for the coronation gown, Wakefield took her cues from Victorian fashion of the period. The pleated neckline, the teal color, the brooch, and the necklace that mimics the neckline's decoration all nod to the style of the day. Also, since Victorian evening wear was allowed to be a little adventurous, Elsa's sleeves are short. And it turns out that Elsa's gloves were actually historically accurate, although Wakefield took the liberty of embellishing Elsa's gloves with the kind of embroidery that would have been seen during that period. Of all the Disney princesses, Jasmine's outfit in Aladdin is perhaps the most inaccurate for the time when the movie likely takes place. It's true we don't know precisely when that is. No one specifically says what year it is in the movie. However, there are several clues that give us an idea. First of all, the Arabic greeting salam is used by multiple characters. Second, the opening number Arabian Nights makes it pretty clear that the movie must take place in an Arabic-speaking country. And finally, when Genie turns Aladdin into Prince Ali, he comments,
"That fez and vest combo is much too 3rd century."
Which means Aladdin must be set in at least the 4th century. All that means that Aladdin took place in pre-Islamic Arabia, which was extremely conservative. Jasmine never would have shown her belly or walked around without a head covering. Instead, she would have worn loose clothing due to the extreme heat.
Where is there to run to? It's hard to imagine that your home could become a house of horrors, but neither could the owners of the 10 terrifying houses coming up. Number 10, Shanley Hotel. It's never a good sign when, after arriving at your hotel, ready to enjoy a relaxing holiday, you're asked to sign a waiver before even getting your room key. If you're a guest at the spooky Shanley Hotel in New York, that's exactly what you can expect. In fact, this hotel is so haunted that no guests under 16 years old can enter. Said to be the scene of over half a dozen deaths, this former home is believed to be cursed. Visitors report hearing footsteps, seeing chairs rocking by themselves, and there have been many ghost sightings, including the mourning spirit of Beatrice, the former owner, whose 3 children all died in the home before their first birthday. Here's a story of one sighting that was recorded. Sal Nicosia, the current owner, remarked how after he moved in,
it's Jessie V. So today my Halloween shirt says, this is like a whole series on my Halloween shirts. It has a cauldron on it and it says double double toil and trouble. What's weird is that all my life I thought it was double bubble toil and trouble, but it's double double. Wow. Maybe that's like a Mandela effect? I'm not really sure. So you probably saw the title of today's video and thought, crayons, Jessie? crayons. I know it doesn't seem like it, but there are actually a lot of creepy and weird facts about crayons. I was surprised too when I was researching this. I always try and think of what would everybody know for my nostalgic series, and everybody knows what crayons are. I mean, if you've never used a crayon, you're an alien. That's the only conclusion I can come to. So a lot of these facts will probably shock you because crayons have quite the backstory. So even though most of you know what crayons are, I'm gonna do a history of them anyways because it's intriguing. The first pack of Crayola crayons were sold in 1903 for 5 pennies. It was an 8-pack of crayons and it was literally 5 pennies. Could you imagine that nowadays? Everything back then was just so teeny tiny cheap. And back before there was industrial machines and factories and stuff, all of the crayon labels were literally rolled on by hand. So making crayons back then was a really tedious job. Back then there were only 8 crayon colors available, and to this date there are 120 colors, which is awesome. Another interesting fact is that scientists say that crayons have the most recognized scent in the entire world. So if you blindfolded everybody in the entire world and put a crayon up to their nose, 99% of people would know what it was. I can like smell it now just thinking about it. Another 2001, there was a poll asking people what their favorite crayon color was, and 25,000 people voted that their favorite color in the crayon box was the blue. So that one was the winner. Big Blue is the world's largest crayon. The Giant was made from 123,000 leftover blue crayons that kids collected. It weighs 1,500 pounds and is almost 16 feet long, so there's no way anyone's coloring with that one. Crayola makes 3 billion crayons a year, so a lot of little kids are using them. So let's first start out with some controversial crayons. And yes, there have been controversial crayons. The first crayon that people didn't like was named Flesh. And because of the fact that people were not okay with this, in 1962, Crayola changed the name to Peach, because obviously there isn't one specific color for flesh. And then in 2017, there was a color that came out that was called Bluetiful. And people were furious with it, and I find it so dumb. It says, critics say it's teaching children incorrect grammar and spelling. People were mad about a word called Bluetiful. I actually find it to be a really cute name for a crayon, but parents and teachers around the world were like, that is not proper grammar and spelling, get rid of it. Are we really living in a world where people are upset about a crayon? Is that really the world we live in right now? Let's get into some creepy crayon carvings. I find these to be so fascinating, and I kind of want to like buy one right now. So there are people out there that make tiny little sculptures out of these crayons. I've also seen it done with like the ends of pencils, and that must take so much work. But just to give you an example of what people make, there is a picture of the Joker being made out of the crayon, which is so cool. There's also a picture of the Donnie Darko bunny, which is really cool as well. I have no idea how they have such precise detail to do this. I'm so impressed.
The music box is quietly playing. The Phantom watches it dully. The Phantom, singing brokenly with the music box.
Masquerade, paper faces on parade. Masquerade, hide your face so the world will never find you.
The Phantom turns to see that Christine, the love of his life, the woman of whom he has caused so much pain, has returned. Slowly, he stands to his feet and makes his way towards her. For a moment, you think she's returned to love the Phantom, and you can see that hopefulness in his eyes. However, it only lasts a moment, as Christine extends her hand to return the ring that he had placed on her thighs. However, it only lasts a moment, as Christine extends her hand to return the ring that he had placed on her finger in a desperate effort to make her love him.
Christine,
She gives his hand a tender kiss, slowly climbs the stairs, the Phantom looking on. With one look back, the Phantom nods as if to say, "It's okay. Go." And the two leave the Phantom alone once again. No matter how many times I've watched this scene, there's always a piece of me that wants Christine to run back down the stairs and to choose to be with the Phantom, even though I know in my heart that it's not the right choice. But how could this be? Over the course of the show, the Phantom constantly deceives and manipulates Christine, murders multiple people, and even sends a chandelier crashing down onto an unsuspecting public. And yet, for some reason, at the end of the show, I'm still rooting for him, as I'm sure much of the audience is as well. And it's all because we can relate to him. All of us, at one point or another, have experienced what it's like to long for the feelings of love from someone who just can't reciprocate those same feelings. We relate with the Phantom over this, over the feeling of not being understood, and at times, the feeling of being in exile. If there's one thing that Andrew Lloyd Webber loves in his musicals, it's having a strong, tragic character that audiences can really care about. While most people would point to the Phantom as being the coup de grace of this type of character, it's interesting to note that there's another character from Lloyd Webber's catalog that nearly equals him, and it comes from a show that many wouldn't expect. Cats. It might be sacrilegious to compare the two shows to each other, especially with a large majority of the theater-going community looking down on Cats as being a musical theater fluff piece that doesn't hold a compelling narrative, and that's a fair assumption to make. Growing up, I never cared for Cats. I felt it was a show that wasted an hour and a half simply introducing characters, only to have approximately 10 minutes of some sort of conflict that doesn't really have an impact, and a show that only became big because Barbra Streisand decided to cover Memory. But upon approaching this essay, attempting to watch and learn about Cats with an open mind, as well as through diving more into the work of T.S. Eliot, I found myself being drawn to a specific character that I hadn't really given any thought to. Grizabella the Glamour Cat. Originally the subject of a poem that T.S. Eliot decided not to include in his book Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, simply because he and his publisher felt it would be too dark for children. Grizabella provides that tragic character that Webber is always looking for in his musicals. She's been rejected by the other Jellicle cats, forced to live in solitude, and only wants to feel love and acceptance. Sound familiar? It's interesting because while both Grizabella and Phantom are similar in the sense that they're both social outcasts that have been exiled from the world in which they live, the contrast between them arises in how they both respond to this isolation, how they perceive society, and what they ultimately desire from that society in the end. Go to any high school drama competition anywhere in the country, and you can be guaranteed that at least one person has seen Cats on video. For many people, this video serves as a gateway drug to the world of musical theater, and with good reason. While Broadway has since been invaded by Disney stage productions of beloved hits like The Lion King, Cats was really the first musical to fully embrace its family appeal. As mentioned in the Beatlemania video, when Cats premiered on Broadway in 1982, the I Love New York advertising campaign was in full swing, and the city was noticing an increase in tourism, specifically among families. Naturally, when parents were looking for a show to go to, and they had the option to either take the kids to A, the show whose advertisements consisted of kids getting their faces painted by the colorful cast members, or B, the show titled Cleavage the Musical, it wasn't a hard choice of what tickets the parents were going to buy. Unless, of course, it was a divorced father having to drag the kids along with his new wife Penny during the kids' yearly visit. As stated earlier, the musical is based off of poet T.S. Eliot's Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, a collection of light poems that he had originally written for his godchildren. Eliot was unlike most poets of his time due to the lyrical nature of his poems, which often included catchy, repeated hooks and fun-flowing verses. He would even go on to refer to the cats in his poems as jellicles, which was his way of poking fun at the posh members of his community, who would refer to cats as "dear little cats." When spoken with Eliot's impersonation of them, it would come out as Jellicle Cats. Based off of the rhythm and lighthearted nature, his poems were begging to be turned into music. And luckily, Andrew Lloyd Webber felt the same way. The idea to turn Practical Cats into a full-length musical spawned from the first meeting between Lloyd Webber and his soon-to-be inseparable producing partner, Cameron McIntyre.